Funding for Behind the Headlines is provided by DHG and Advisors. DHG is a full-service accounting firm serving Memphis and the Mid-South region for more than 60 years, combining community involvement with the technical resources of a national firm. For more information, visit dhgllp.com.
Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
A look at the explosive growth in North Mississippi tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined tonight by Chip Johnson, mayor of Hernando, Mississippi. Thank you for being here. Also, Darren Musselwhite, the mayor of Southaven, Mississippi. Thank you for being here. Kevin Doddridge, who's CEO of Northridge Electric Power. Thanks for coming. And Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. So look, we're talking about growth. We're talking about the explosive growth over the last many years. I'll start with you. You've been mayor now 10 years. What was the key to making this sort of growth happen?
Well, I think there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but the overarching piece is just an overall quality of life that we're trying to create. And I think all of that is built on a high quality public education. We can do all the other things, that if we don't have high quality public education, we're not going to have the educated workforce to provide the workers for these jobs. So I think that's the base of everything, and then we build on top of that with incentives for business, with good roads, good infrastructure, a healthy community. We were just named, DeSoto County was just named the healthiest county in the state of Mississippi again yesterday for the 5th year running. So there's just a lot of different pieces to it.
Mayor Musselwhite, you would agree, and I assume, and what would have been other priorities in the keys to making the kind of really explosive growth happen in Southaven?
Well, in Southaven more specifically, similar to what Mayor Johnson said, we have quality schools, we have quality health care, and the housing market. I think the housing market has been key in Southaven in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, the residential subdivisions started going up and made it an attractive place to live. Also the key geographic location. You know, we're near big city amenities, but we also have that small town feel for people to live in. And then obviously public safety. You know, when you have all those things, if you don't have a safe place to live, you know, people are not going to want to live there. So in Southaven, we've been fortunate over the years that we've been able to have all those amenities and still have a safe place to live. Yeah,
and from an economic development point of view, your involvement in I mean, there's been tremendous growth in, you know, warehouse distribution. I mean, just industrial and light industrial. Right. How has that happened from your point of view in economic development, not just with, you know, North Central Electric, but just the whole recruitment and retention and relocation of businesses?
Well, the best start was a firm foundation that we had in 1970 when Holiday Inn moved out into the Olive Branch area to form a training facility. There was really nothing in that area. Southaven had formed several years before. It's a residential area, but when we had that foundation of industrial development, when you brought Holiday Inn training, you brought Holiday Inn Press as well. So we had a firm foundation of industrial growth. That spread into a small commercial growth. And we had a good school system, but as the schools improved, we kind of saw a good mix of all three, the industrial, the small commercial, and then the rooftop started to come after that. With the increased infrastructure, especially the road infrastructure, that's when the logistics came in several years later, in the warehousing.
Yeah, Bill.
So at this point, after a lot of hard work by a lot of people, this is all really starting to gel. I guess it's already gelled in so many ways for all of your communities. To your point, is this a mosaic? Really, are there areas in DeSoto County where there are strengths, particular strengths in warehouse versus residential? I mean, is that what we're seeing, kind of a puzzle coming together here?
Well, we can identify it as DeSoto County, but really the development is a far-reaching regional approach, and I think we're seeing that, especially with the construction of the Interstate 269, that's going to really link West Tennessee and eastern Arkansas at some point. So in DeSoto County, especially in the Olive Branch area, we're able to concentrate on logistics, warehousing. But in the future, as we have to confront air quality standards and the like, it may make more sense to push some of the heavy industry maybe into some regional counties, maybe push it to the east in Marshall County or something like that. But we can all still take advantage of the mix by having that interstate loop coming through there.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Musselwhite, talk about South Haven's development in particular, because to his point, this all gets more complex as you go along, and there are concerns like the clean air standards that come into play with growth.
Well, South Haven, being a fairly new city, South Haven just became a city in 1980, and we have been blessed with extremely fast rate of growth. And with that, the planning has been a little haphazard because things happen so fast, over the last, 20, 25 years. So as we move forward, we're looking for a more planned growth. We want to be more selective about where we put things and how we zone things, but it comes down to good zoning, just a better planned zoning.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Johnson, from your perspective, how does Hernando fit into what is going on, and what's next on the horizon?
Well, I think we are the oldest city in DeSoto County. We started in 1836, but our growth came later after South Haven, so we had the luxury of seeing what had happened in South Haven, and we were able to get our zoning in place and our comprehensive plan in place before the big boom came. So we were very blessed with that. But I think what you're going to see coming is the intersection of I-69 and I-55 is in the city limits of Hernando. And when 269 opens, I think you're going to start seeing corporate headquarters and Class A office space dotted along that route.
And does that sort of growth, is part of the subtext that sort of growth comes to the detriment of Memphis? Is it an either or? Sometimes that plays out. Somebody, a company moves from Memphis, and it's sort of people in Memphis are upset, and people in DeSoto County are happy, or even residents or so on. Is it an either or kind of equation that everything that good that you guys are talking about and have earned and deserved is to the detriment of Memphis?
And I think that could happen. And we have a regional mayor's council. Mayor Luttrell, Mayor Horton, Mayor Musselwhite, myself, all the regional mayors are working together because we understand this is a regional plan. If Memphis fails, we all fail. We know that. So we want Memphis to do well. We have what I like to call a friendly rivalry. I would love to get every business, but when Mayor Musselwhite gets one, I cheer for him. And when Memphis gets a new business, we all cheer for Memphis because we know some of those people are going to live and shop in our area. So we need to make sure we focus on a strong regional approach so we don't do things to the detriment of our sister cities.
Would you agree with that?
I would, but even more so, I'm not a cliche kind of person, but I did hear a cliche the other day that I liked, that the rising tide rises all boats. And I think that in a lot of situations, it does hurt neighboring cities when they don't get the development that they want. It goes to one of their neighboring cities and somewhat competitors. But I think the big picture, it does help everyone when there's quality development. And an example of that is, we just broke ground on the Tanger development off Church Road, and that ties in well with Memphis tourism. When you have downtown Memphis and all that it offers, and then Graceland, and it just makes sense that Tanger development will give another another opportunity for the tourists that come to the area. So it's going to benefit Memphis and South Haven.
Yeah, Tanger development, its outlet mall is what, some 70, an outlet mall with 70-something stores is the plan.
Initially
right.
70 upscale stores, but it is an outlet shop. So they have 46 throughout the United States, but this is the
And Kevin
first
Kane from the Memphis CVB was at the groundbreaking, I think, and Bill quoted him in his story, him saying, look, all these are dollars, all these are people to the area, and they're going to maybe stay on the Memphis side and shop on the DeSoto County side, or vice versa.
Well, you're bringing people that are not in the area. So when you're bringing people to spend money to the area that you would not otherwise have, I think it benefits the whole region. Right.
Let's talk a little bit from the economic development point of view and the incentives. And we've talked a lot about that on the show over the last couple of years because it's gotten to be somewhat controversial in Memphis, the way pilots are done. And it's a system that I say too often that everyone who comes on says, I don't like pilots. Even the people who sell the pilots don't like the pilot system because it's bulky and it's difficult and it's confusing. Mississippi is always said to have a very simple system. What are the advantages of your tax? How do tax? Just give me a lesson 101 if you can on how tax incentives and so on work in Mississippi, and then I'll kind of compare it to Tennessee.
Okay, the mayors would probably have a little bit more
Yeah,
experience
that's
as far as
fine.
the
Yeah.
taxation. I do know that when it comes to the simple pilot is, you'll often hear people discuss that you hate to grant an industry an in lieu of tax and miss out on those tax dollars. But we have to remember, if that industry didn't locate there in the first place, then you wouldn't have those tax dollars. In Mississippi, technically, road and bridge taxes are generally collected, or at least bridge taxes. I believe school taxes are. And also, if you can bring in a good business, a good industry, then you're going to be circled by tier 1 suppliers, small commercial business that comes in there and then further enhances your tax base.
Right. Do you all politically? Do you catch heat when some sort of incentive package is put out to bring a company to town? Do you get people who call you up or see in the grocery store and say, "Hey, why are we giving tax breaks to these companies?"
Well, generally at the local level, we'll give a personal property tax exemption and maybe a real property tax exemption,
Right.
but we're not exempting everything. Generally, where the bigger incentives come from are from the Mississippi Development Authority.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing in Hernando is, as we try to build a quality community, these businesses are coming without the huge incentives from MDA. We just got Schultz Extruded Products to locate. They're going to do about an $80 million investment with no MDA incentives.
Yeah.
They'll just get the personal and property tax local incentives and do an $80 million investment because we've got a quality community they want to be in.
Well, let's talk about incentives. I'll go back to Bill here, but on you mentioned the Tanger outlet involves some, I don't know if they were statewide, but certainly county, city, $15 million dollars worth of incentives. I mean, that's a new, we think about incentives being industrial, we think about a factory, we think maybe about warehouse, but these kind of tax incentives for retail, were you comfortable with that? Have you gotten criticism for that?
Well, there was a little bit of confusion about that when the initial talks began before I became the mayor. There was a proposed TIF that was out there. That went away. So the $15 million, that's old news. Actually, what that was replaced by was the Mississippi MDA Tourism Rebate Program. So what that does is just it commits 30% of the total project back to the developer as the sales tax revenues come in. So the state of Mississippi pledged that. So it's no money, and I'm glad you asked the question, because I hear from a lot of citizens that say, well, we don't need the debt, why are we spending money over there? We haven't spent money. This is money that we don't have yet. So as the development is completed and the sales tax revenue starts coming in, that revenue will go back to the developer up to 30% of the development. So it was a great incentive for them to come here.
Do you worry that you'll get existing businesses, existing retail, existing malls and say, hey, I want that too? I mean, is there sort of an opening of the floodgates that businesses start saying, hey, I want those kind of incentives also?
That's a great question. The tourism rebate program was actually a rare situation. It's been used a few times throughout the state, and actually, I understand that it's been that the state legislature has removed that. So I don't think that's available for future. It was just a special opportunity that we had that we took advantage of.
Yeah, Bill.
Mayor Johnson, it sounds like we've got kind of the same things that are called different things on each side of the state line when it comes to these incentives, and a few differences, like the Tennessee Constitution doesn't allow you to waive property taxes, so thereby whoever issues a pilot has to take ownership technically of the land there. But it sounds like basically we're talking about the same concepts in terms of incentives and the same decisions that you all have to make and your legislative bodies have to make.
I think you're right, and I think where communities can separate themselves and rise to the top, when we started looking at what these businesses want, the number one thing on their list is not incentives. It's a qualified workforce, an educated workforce. So that's what we're really working on in DeSoto County. What a lot of people don't know is you can go to Northwest Community College and the University of Mississippi in the city of South Haven and get a master's degree without ever leaving DeSoto County. And those are the kind of qualified workers we want. And we're building 2 public VOTEC centers, or career tech centers, with the DeSoto County school system, one on the west side, one on the east side, to train workers that may not go to college and just be good, skilled workers.
Mm. How has Olive Branch changed in all of this? Because new jobs, new homeowners also represent a shift in a community as well on another level.
Olive Branch has changed in every way imaginable right now. The city center has shifted, geographically. We are no longer what you would call a city of solely commuters. It's a self-supporting city. Many of the people that live in Olive Branch work in Olive Branch as well. We've actually got a lot of people that live in Tennessee that work in Olive Branch. What we're seeing, to kind of go back to some earlier comments, is something that is purely regional. You've got people in Olive Branch that identify with Memphis and vice versa. One of the major job shifts, though, has been the fact that we've got more technical jobs, more engineering, accounting, attorneys, banking positions, things like that. Occupations that if you went back 25 years ago, if you were a person that was born and raised in Olive Branch, went off to college, you would probably have to go to Memphis, Dallas, Atlanta, somewhere to find a job matching up with your skill set. But now there's a lot more opportunity in Olive Branch, a lot of opportunity for people that go off to college or choose to go to South Haven into college to stay at home.
Mm-hmm. And Mayor, with Tanger coming to South Haven, obviously you have retail, but this is a different level of retail. So how does that impact economic growth and development in South Haven? And how specifically in terms of shopping, in terms of people being able to remain in South Haven, how does it affect that?
Well, the first key thing that is different about this retail center to what has been in the Mid-South area before is this is a regional concept. Mm-hmm. And I've had a hard time explaining the difference in that, because a lot of times when people hear mall, they have their preconceived ideas about a mall. Well, this is a totally different animal. It's a regional concept where we're expecting to bring tourists in from as far as a 250-mile radius. So you look at the malls that are in the Mid-South now, they would be considered local malls. I mean, they're going to draw, from cities, surrounding Memphis, but you're not going to get the person from Kentucky or Missouri or Louisiana that's coming to the Memphis malls. This is a totally different animal. We expect to have tourists coming in here from we're a 3-hour drive from 6 states. Mm-hmm. So we expect, up to a 250-mile radius to bring shoppers in. And
we talked at the groundbreaking, your priority even before the groundbreaking was that interchange at 55 and Church Road.
Yes, sir.
So you're going to be talking a lot to the state about that. You already are talking a lot to the state.
Yes, there's no doubt that's the number one concern right there. And it's sad that you get excited about a good development, but then with that, as you two guys know, comes problems with that, with traffic. And traffic's a good problem to have, but nonetheless, it's a problem. So I will be in direct contact with MDOT, just basically, just trying to explain the severity of it. When it's already a problem there, and then when you bring that many more travelers there for the Tanger development, it's going to complicate the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Johnson, in terms of your traffic problems there, I don't want to call them problems, but the price of success, let's call it.
Well, we've got our main exit there at Commerce mm-hmm. Street, and it is a mess. The bridge is too small going under the interstate. And when you look at it, it suddenly makes sense, because when that exit was built, the population of Hernando was about 1,500. Now we're about 16,000. And so as we grow, I think the state's going to have to look at our region and decide that we're growing so much more rapidly, we need a little more attention. If you look at the census between 2000 and 2010, DeSoto County made up fully half of the state of Mississippi's growth. So we need to be putting almost half of the road dollars up there, you would think, just to keep up with that growth.
Mm-hmm. Are you all, in the Tennessee dynamic with the state legislature, Memphis is kind of an outlier, to frustration. Has that been the case in North Mississippi, or how? I don't want you to get crossways with any state legislators, but is it historically been that that legislature is more focused on Central or South Mississippi, or is it changed? I'm just curious.
I think you would find that DeSoto County and the coast both sometimes feel like outliers in the state of Mississippi. But it's because our growth has been so fast, our representation hasn't been able to keep up. So now, this new election you're seeing coming up in November, DeSoto County is getting 2 new state representative seats and 1 new state Senate seat. So our representation is going to catch up. And I think you're going to start seeing more people from the northwestern part of the state start taking regional and state offices as well.
And you had talked before the show, we were talking about Marshall County, which
Right.
is you serve part of Marshall County, and the huge explosive growth that really, I mean, it's just another level of industrial growth up there that I think you characterize as probably the hottest area in all of Mississippi. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct. Right now, Marshall County, as far as industrial prospects that are looking in our area, dotting the radar screen, Marshall County is probably the hottest area, easily in Mississippi and probably in the southeast United States. A lot of that is its proximity to road infrastructure, but also the proximity to Memphis. In Marshall County particularly, we're getting a lot of interest from international companies. Some companies in Asia, Western Europe, that this is their first footprint in the United States. So they really enjoy the proximity to Memphis. A lot of it has to do with 269, 72, the roads in that area, their ability to still locate their facility in Marshall County where there's a good, well-trained workforce, but still have some of the amenities of Memphis and Shelby County.
Yeah. Back to Bill.
And the road construction is right at the edge of where the Roxel plant is being built. Near Byhalia is the area
Right.
that we're talking about specifically here. And that industrial park has been there for quite a while. So it's certainly not an overnight success story, even though it seems that way so many times.
The property has been there for some time, and then we had slow, limited growth. We had some warehousing companies come over, ASICS is an example there. But when Roxel decided several years ago they wanted to put a large footprint in that area, that was really the staple industry that started bringing the other. And then that's what brought in the attention from Western Tennessee to assist getting more infrastructure to the state line. Because the development will stack up there. It's part in North Mississippi and that 72 corridor, part in Tennessee. It's also helped us attract Volvo. And like I said, anybody that comes to us, a site selector, if they're asking for the hottest property right now, it's going to be in Marshall County.
Mm-hmm. So what does that specific impact mean for your communities and the impact on them?
Well, speaking for South Haven, the way I look at it, I mean, obviously they're a neighbor of ours, but again, you know, the more quality of life, the more attraction you bring here, and we got to think about it. We're looking a lot of times for, as Mayor Johnson said, you know, if we're wanting to develop a corporate headquarters here, then these are people that, you know, maybe in Atlanta, Dallas, New Orleans, when they come here and they're looking at the whole area, you know, and when they see things like that, it's a quality of life thing. You got to remember when a company relocates, it's not just about the employee, the upper level management, it's about their families too. I mean, their families are going to be moving with them. They're looking for a place that where they want to live. And so, you know, if they come here and they say, well, hey, you know, there's not really much here. This is not like, you know, Atlanta, Dallas, New Orleans. We don't really like it. But if they come here and they see developments like what's going on in Marshall County, they see all that we have to offer in South Haven, you're close to Memphis, you know, you got a super nice city in Hernando. All of it goes together. I think it's key for bringing a corporate headquarters to this area.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of Hernando, in terms of what's happening near Byhalia,
I'll go back to what I said earlier. Anything that happens in the region is good for all of us. But I think specifically for Hernando, we are really positioned well. How often do you get a small town of 16,000 people with 2 major interstates that intersect? So we've got 69 and 55. That intersect right in our city limits with 70 acres already zoned ready for corporate headquarters. So the doors are open, you know, and as I like to say, Hernando's open for business.
Just 2 minutes left here. I'll start with you. Your concerns, what keeps you up at night when you think about this growth? These are, like we said about traffic, it's good problems to have, but there are problems that come with this.
Well, with the growth, a city has cash flow problems. The way our property tax structure works in DeSoto County, if you buy a house in February, it goes on the tax rolls next January, and then we collect those taxes a year in arrears. So on average, a person in a new house lives there for a year and a half before we collect property tax from them. that's a cash flow issue as we're trying to hire more policemen and firemen to service these new houses. So when that crazy growth was going on, there was a time in Hernando where every day 14% of my citizens weren't paying property tax yet.
No wonder it grew.
So it was kind of crazy for a little while.
That's a subtle sales pitch
So as
to the
it
listeners.
slows down a little bit, that cash flow is a little easier to manage. But we do worry about that every day, trying to keep up with our low tax rate and trying to keep up with services.
Your concerns as you grow and it looks like the economy is improved and is booming again potentially. I mean, you got to be worried about some parts of this.
Well, we've been very blessed in South Haven financially, but with growth does come crime and traffic. And as we talked about, the traffic is one of my biggest concerns. We're blessed to have an outstanding police department. We've sent a good message about crime. You know, we're not
Right.
going to tolerate that, or we're not going to look the other way. If you come to South Haven wanting to cause trouble, we're ready for that. So, and I give credit to our police chief, Tom Long, and police department, who's one of the most respected in the Southeast. And so we've done a great job with that. But obviously crime and traffic are your biggest concerns.
Yeah.
The other thing is not neglecting the older part as you grow and get bigger, especially residentially, is not neglecting your original parts of your city, because a lot of times people focus on the new growth and they forget to look back and take care of the original parts. So that's big for me.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you all, and thank you for joining us. Join us again next week. Good night.
Funding for Behind the Headlines is provided by DHG and Advisors. DHG is a full-service accounting firm serving Memphis and the Mid-South region for more than 60 years, combining community involvement with the technical resources of a national firm. For more information, visit dhgllp.com.